episode of the Laughter for All podcast. This is Comedian Nazareth coming to you from Corona, California, home of the COVID 19 and its variants. Not just kidding. We are in Southern California. We used to be known for beer, even though we don't have anything to do with the Corona beer, but now the virus took over and we don't know what's next. But hey, uh, this is episode 103, and you guys know in the last few episodes I had comedians, and then once in a while, if I meet someone who is just so influential and so powerful and can impact your life, I beg them to come on the show, and some of them really do. And today is that special day where I'm going to introduce a friend of mine who's really going to be so helpful to you guys. So, if you know anyone who wants to know about heart and cardiology and prayer and life and death and last moments of life, just tell them right now. Go text them, email them, tell them, hey, you need to join us because you're really gonna enjoy this. And once you're done with this, when we're done with this episode, it's gonna go up within a few days on all channels. Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. So you're able to really share this with and listen to it at your convenience. I just want to remind you our sponsor is Professional Botanicals, which is the vitamins that I've been using. These are kind of high end vitamins, Nordstrom vitamins. Not your, they've been really very impactful for me. So they helped me with my inflammations and they helped me with my energy. So I like them. I never force you to use them, but if you do want to use them, you can go to gethealthywithnaz.com, gethealthywithnaz.com, and you'll be able to get them. Right now, my guest, I want to enjoy every minute of him. Uh, I got the pleasure to meet him through a friend a few weeks ago when we were doing the Chris Tomlin concert in Colorado. Mark Sheehan. He's an author. He's a cardiologist, and he is a board certified cardiologist and has been practicing medicine since 1981. He's a member of South Denver Cardiology Associates and an associate professor of medicine at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. A co-founder of the Christian Medical Ministry to Cambodia, Jeremiah's Hope, and we'll be talking towards the end of the show about Jeremiah's Hope and how you can be involved, how you can support it. Mark leads numerous medical teams to Cambodia to teach the Cambodian medical community and care for the poor under the banner of Jesus Christ. Mark and his wife Linda live in Denver and have two grown children. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Mark Sheehan. Hello, doctor. Welcome.
Welcome, Nazareth. Thank you for having me on the show. It's my joy to be here with you.
Thank you. When did you have time to write this beautiful book? This book I got to read. This is an easy to read. It's interesting. It has a lot of stories. You think when a doctor writes a book, I can't even read his prescriptions yet alone. But this is an easy to read book. It talks about prayer, talks about life, talks about death, and so many interesting stories. You can't put it down. So at the end of the show, I'll show you ways where you can get this book for yourself. Easy to read, love. Thank you for writing this book. And now, how come I get intimidated every time I go to the doctor or when I see a physician? I get intimidated. Why is that?
Well, that's not uncommon. Doctors can be pretty scary, and the main reason they're scary is of what they may tell you. You don't want to hear bad. No one wants to hear bad news, Nazareth, and so that's not uncommon. But doctors are in the business to help people. The key is to care for the patient, and there's a famous quotation by a Dr. Francis Peabody. The secret of the care of a patient is caring for the patient. The
Mm,
secret of caring for the patient is caring for the patient.
I
So
see.
doctors are in the caring business. They should be caring and in a lot of ways should be loving their patients as well.
Yeah. Now, when Mark was 9 years old, did he wanted to be a cardiologist, a physician, or was he pressured by his parents to go in that field?
Well, actually, I was 11. And in the book, it talks about while I was living with my my family, a family of 7 boys in Syosset, Long Island. I was playing bathtub roller derby, and what that means is you take a bar of soap, you put a little water in, you soap the inside of a tub, and then you just bounce around the inside of the tub. And I was 11 years old, naked and covered with soap, and then my grandmother told me to get out of the tub, and I got out, and lo and behold, I slipped, fell on the runner for the glass door, and put a 5-inch incision in my leg. And so here's my poor grandmother seeing this naked 11-year-old boy, blood everywhere. And fortunately, my mother took me to the doctor, and I was very impressed with the care of the doctor. He was very caring. He sewed up my leg, and at that time, I was in the Boy Scouts, and I felt that becoming a doctor was my calling. So that's when I decided to be a doctor. I was very fortunate at age 11 to know that I wanted to be a doctor.
Have you ever, during, medical school, internship, all the staying up, have you ever said, I'm done, this is not for me, I quit? Have you ever had those thoughts?
Well, no. The answer is no. There are certainly times when you get fatigued and you're exhausted. I think one of the reasons when patients talk to me about prayer, I say make sure you pray for your doctors because they need it. Uh,
Mm.
and when I've been especially tired and up for 2 and 3 days at a time without much sleep, the couple days after that, I go around uh, apologizing to everybody if I've been short or irritable because doctors are human and they make they get irritable and so you have to pray for your doctors too because Lord knows they need it.
Amen. Now, let me ask you this question: who's in charge? Is it the doctor, the physician, or God? Who's in charge?
Well, the answer is God's in charge. God's in charge, and when I was a intern at Houston at Baylor College of Medicine, I was working at the Ben Taub, and I was making rounds on a patient one day, a 55-year-old African American man, and he told me that he was going to die that day.
Hmm.
And of course, I was the intern. I wrote all the orders. I knew the least but did the most. And I told him, you're not going to die. Your lab's in order. And in fact, I was thinking about discharging you to that day. And then later that afternoon, he had a sudden, unexpected cardiac arrest and died. And it took me at a very young point in my career and shook me and really said, who is in charge? Who controls life and death? And the answer is the Lord controls life and death. My worldview at that time was very naive, and it was a good lesson early in my career.
Were you a believer at that age, at when you were an intern?
No, I was raised Nazareth in a Christian family, but my faith all during college, med school, internship, residency was very inactive at best. The doctors thought we had all the answers, and no. So I would say I was not a Christian. And what actually brought my wife Linda and I to Christ was questions from our 3-year-old son Chris,
Mm.
who helped write the book with me. He's a creative writer. And when Chris was a young boy, age 3, he came up to Linda and I and started asking us questions about God and heaven and hell. And we looked at each other and we didn't have the answer. And so it was the love of our son that got us back into the church. And then as we started attending an evangelical Christian church, we both independently came to Christ in our early 30s.
Wow. Have you ever, I mean, I have few friends who are physicians. Have you ever had guilt that you were gone a lot because of the demand of the medical school and the residency and the field you're in? Have you ever felt like you didn't spend time with the kids? You didn't do a lot with Linda, your wife? Does this happen to the physicians?
And in fact, that it does. And Linda and I have had a lot of talks about this because she had to change. She had to become independent from me. She had to be able to make decisions without me being around. So, in a lot of ways, it was important for Linda to grow up because I was not around. When you're working 100 hours a week, you're just not home. You're just not home that much. And yeah, I think it takes a toll on my son, my daughter, my wife, because it takes a lot of time and to be a good caring doctor. It does.
Now, when you're first of all, I forgot to ask you, why did you pick cardiology? I mean, that's a heart, that's a main engine in the body. Like, if this one is bad, it's gone, right?
Well, that's a great question. When I went to Baylor in Houston, I actually went there to be a heart surgeon, but I was more stimulated by understanding the causes of disease, and that's called pathophysiology, where you can talk to a patient, Nazareth. You can try to understand from their symptoms and other signs, physical exam and laboratory tests, what is wrong with the patient. So intellectually, that was very stimulating to me. And that's why I chose internal medicine. And cardiology is to me, the most interesting disease process. And that's why I chose that. To answer your question, I loved all fields in medicine. I loved obstetrics and gynecology. I loved uh, oncology, cancer treatment, and pulmonary. There are many fields I really enjoyed. Intensive care medicine I enjoyed, but cardiology was the field I especially was attracted to. Plus, my father had a heart attack as a young man, so I was motivated to explore cardiology and do my best to prevent this disease from occurring in my patients.
How was your relationship with your dad?
Well, my dad is deceased. He died at age 58,
Uh,
and uh, and my dad suffered from bipolar illness, and
mm,
he was a very smart engineer. He played he played baseball and football for Rice University. He was a very bright guy, and but during the latter part of his years, Nazareth, his illness uh, um, was difficult to control. He was not happy about a lot of things. So he and I, later in his life, were not as close as we could have been, should have been, and in fact, he at one time my mother called and said, "Dad's having more problems. Will you come down? We need to put him in. We need to admit him to a psychiatric hospital." So in the Air Force, I had to fly down to Houston and, against his will, commit him to a hospital.
mm,
He was very unhappy with me, obviously, as you would expect.
right.
And, and when he ultimately died of heart disease, he died suddenly. And you and I shared some things about that because if you talk to people, they say, "Well, that's the way I want to go. Is I want to die suddenly and not have any pain and suffering." But my book goes into detail about this because the dying room is a special place. It's holy ground. The things that are said in that room are healing, memorable, and it's that in the context of that dying room where loved ones can express their thanks to love their parents or their loved ones, thank them for what they've done, And plus, there's a lot of forgiveness and healing that occurs in that dying room. The other reason it's called holy ground is that God always shows up there. God is always present in that room.
So what you're saying is, it's it better, some people think it's better just to die in your sleep and be gone, and no, don't have your family to deal with all that's what requires as you're getting sick. You say it's better to just maybe take that time, or have that last time to be able to settle things and forgiveness. Is that what you're saying, doctor?
A lot of doctors say that's the way I want to go. Just let me die in my sleep. But uh, I wish I would have been able to just hold my dad's hand and tell him thank him for all the times he was my
Mm,
baseball coach growing up, all the times he sacrificed and loved his family, and because that context is healing. And my dad tried his best. You can imagine if you're working and you have 7 boys, every nickel is spent to pay for a dentist or a doctor's appointment or you know, another expense. There's always something going on with 7 boys.
right. Now, as a physician, and I met you couple times. I love your heart. Does a physician, when they lose a patient, does it hit them? Does it touch them personally? Do they go home and feel sad, or it just you have to block yourself and just be professional about it?
Well, again, doctors are human, and
Mhm.
and in the process of caring for patients, you come to love these patients. And when I follow patients for many years, the things that are talked about behind closed doors are very intimate. They're very intimate. These people are very, very close to you. And being a Christian, I know that our ultimate healing for all of us will come when we come into the presence of the Lord. All of us are going to die. It's still 100%. In fact, there's only 2 people who've gotten out of life without dying. That's Enoch and Elijah.
Yeah.
But we're all going to die, and there's going to be something that takes us away. And so, our ultimate healing is when we get our glorified body in the presence of the Lord. And as I get older, that sounds better and better every day.
I love your attitude. In your book, The Healing Prayer on Holy Grounds, you just mentioned quickly, and I want to talk more about it. You mean in the dying bed is holy grounds, or that moment when that patient is dying, that is holy ground. How can you talk more about that? How is that? How did you come to that conclusion personally?
I didn't come to that conclusion. I came to it through the testimony of my patients. My patients would tell me, Nazareth, who's in charge, and uh, they would tell me their stories. And in the telling of the stories, you see the presence of the Lord in the lives of these patients, especially when they're very sick. Especially when
Mm.
they're very sick. So this no, that is not my idea. That is a testimony from my patients talking about the presence of God in their lives.
R- in your book, it says there's a great story about this lady, the patient that died, and then I know a lot of people would don't believe in like out of body experience, and they say that's just hallucination, that's inventing visions, that may be deceived by Satan. But in that book, that's really the first time where I I became a believer that yes, you can have that out of body experience. Can you tell us more about that and that story in the
Yes,
book?
it'll take a few minutes, but it's a
Take your
powerful.
time. We have plenty of time because this is not KKLA. This
Yeah,
is my podcast.
yeah. It's a powerful story. The woman's name was Casey, Kasey, and this story started on December 30th, 1988. It's 4:45 p.m. and at 5 p.m. I'm on vacation. So I
Mm,
get a call that I have to see this 35-year-old woman in shock. I race over to the Swedish Medical Center where I take care of her. For the next 4 hours, I work on this woman trying to save her life. Long history of asthma and lung disease. She came in with worsening symptoms, had a respiratory arrest and a cardiac arrest. And when I saw her, her blood pressure was 60, her heart rate was 180. She was intubated, and I did everything medically possible to try to turn things around. I put a special catheter called a Swan-Ganz catheter in her neck vein and advanced it into the lung to measure cardiac function. We did a stat echocardiogram, which is a sound wave test looking at the cardiac function. And that showed me that the cardiac function was not compatible with life. I put a special additional balloon catheter in her groin artery to raise her blood pressure, increase blood flow. I had her on all the special medications, and nothing, after 4 hours, nothing had turned around. She was not any better. I went out and talked to her husband, Jim, and told her I didn't think I was going to be able to help him much, that Casey was probably going to die, and how to deal with this with their 5-year-old son, James. And that's where, and I went back into the room, Nazareth, and brushed the bloody hair off of her forehead and said, I've done all I can do. The rest is up to you, Lord. And I went
Mm.
home and I wept. I went home and I wept. And my wife, Linda, loved me and encouraged me. And we went on our vacation the next day. And when I came back a week later, I was fully expecting her to be dead, but in fact, she was out of the ICU and she was better. So Casey, uh, that's where Casey was in the physical.
Mm.
While I was working on her, she then went to a different place. And this was where she is in the spiritual. She was in the presence of this huge structure,
Mm.
uh, covered with multiple layers of different colors. And all around this huge structure were these pearlescent gates. And while she was looking at this huge structure, she was aware of the presence of voices in a choir, raised in a chorus singing. And
Mm.
as you know, when you go to an orchestra or a chorus, Nazareth, and you listen to the blended voices, if you listen critically, you can hear individual voices. And she realized this was a choir of prayer raised for her.
Mm.
Specifically, heard two of her pastors praying for her. She heard the voice of David Hay, one of the members of an agape prayer group, praying for her. And then she heard a loud booming voice said, and the gates of darkness shall not prevail. And and then she found herself in the presence of the Lord. And the Lord told her that he had heard the prayer of faith and the prayers of the faithful, and that he was sending her back. And
Mm.
at that time, he prepared a meal of a dove, and she was instructed to participate and eat the dove and the broth. And at that point, everything became absolutely silent. She heard a snapping sound, looked up, and saw a blanket of feathers descending on her. And as soon as that blanket of feathers touched her, she woke up in her bed. And of course, this brings up a lot of memories for Casey. The blanket of feathers is described in Psalm 91:4, where he'll cover you with his feathers. And
Mm.
she knew that this was the Holy Spirit touching her and restoring her health. Casey ultimately was diagnosed with alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency, which is a lung disease caused by a genetic deficiency of this enzyme. So even though she was not a smoker, she had end stage lung disease and was never a smoker. And she ultimately died 3 years later, awaiting a lung heart transplant. She became very, very close to me, Nazareth, and her testimony is in my book. About 6 weeks after she recovered, she showed up in my office unannounced with no appointment and had to speak to me. And by the time she came in, she had sent me a copy of her testimony. And first thing I said is, I'm a Christian also. And I was wearing my surgical greens that day, and she realized that I was in her vision, and she then wrote me a letter back a week later saying, "Did I pray over her? I've done everything I could, Lord. The rest is up to you." And I said, "Of course, I did say that. I did say that prayer." And then she came back to me and said she didn't know what this meant, but the Lord gave her a special verse to give to me. And that verse comes from Jeremiah 29:11-13. "I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope." And that verse is the reason why my co-founder, Dr. Dan Smith, and I named our Christian ministry to Cambodia Jeremiah's Hope.
That's interesting. So in her book, when I read the book, it shows like, this is not someone who had an out of body experience and just saw that. She gave you details of who prayed for her, what they said. She also told you exactly what you prayed for her. And you also mentioned that last time that there was, she knew the ER doctor, what car did he drive, what color and what freeway. So that's not just like a regular, I was up out,
Oh,
on
no,
the
no.
roof looking.
That's exactly right. She saw her lung doctor get into his gray blue Jeep and the route he took to drive over to take care of her when she had her cardiac arrest. The other stories that we need to talk about is when she was in the hospital recovering. The two pastors came by and wished her well, and she thanked them for praying for her, and they acknowledged that. And then another patient, David Hay, came by and she thanked him for praying for her, but he said, "Yes, but I prayed silently." But Casey said, "Yes, but you don't understand where I was standing. Your prayer came across loud and clear."
Wow.
And the fourth, and that is wonderful because for patients and their family, they sometimes wonder, well, can I just pray silently? And the answer is absolutely yes. Prayer, silent or audible, is always powerful. And in a lot of ways, silent prayer may be the most powerful because the only one who's hearing it is the Lord.
You
Uh,
wrote a lot in your book about prayer. You actually did some research with different pastors and leaders. Tell us more about prayer to those to people. We have about 70 people right now watching, and I don't know. Of course, this one goes audio will be thousands, but tell us a little bit about from your research about prayer because there's a lot in it in this book.
well, my book, it's a true story of the power of prayer in the lives of my patient.
Mm.
It goes into the dying room, and as I mentioned, it's a holy place. We need to take off our shoes. The
Wow.
message is that both good and bad episodes occur when people die. They're not all good, Nazareth. Some
Mm.
people do not have good experiences. They would like to think the road is wide and everyone goes, but that's not the answer. The road is narrow, and there's only one way to get to heaven, and that's through Jesus. Um, Prayer is a dependent humility before God. Prayer is a dependent humility before prayer. We believe in a God who wants to hear our prayers, and
Amen.
He does answer those prayers. Um, Prayer is a communion with God where we abide with Him. And when I'm in Cambodia doing medical mission, and I believe I'm in the will of God over there, When I pray, Nazareth, the answer is yes, and it's now.
Hmm.
In Cambodia, and I pray, the answer is yes, and it's now. And a lot of people get frustrated with prayer because they pray for a loved one, and the loved one doesn't get better and dies. Or and the thing we have to realize when we're praying is the hardest part of the Lord's prayer, not my will, but your will be done. Because
Amen.
our ultimate healing is when we come into his presence.
Amen. Now, how come a lot of people at your caliber with your education, how come they don't believe? They believe more in science than they do believe in God.
Well, another reason why you need to pray for your doctors, because no group of people have a higher incidence of suicide, drug, and alcohol abuse. So, oh, please pray for your doctors. Now, my contention, it's not my idea. It's again on my reading and research. There's an old book by Dr. E.M. Bounds that you
Mm.
can still pick up on the internet, uh, called Power of Prayer. And he says in this book, the pride of learning is against the dependent humility of prayer. How is it that nurses who also have to go through science classes and math and biology, how come nurses have a 95% belief in God and doctors only have a 50%? And it's my contention that the difference is the pride of learning. When a doctor gets into medical school, he's very proud to get into medical school. And that feeling of the pride, if you ask a first year medical student, they have a 50% incidence of faith. If you ask a first year nursing student, 95% believe in God.
Wow.
90% of 95% of my patients believe in God. So it's my contention this the pride of learning uh, is against the dependent humility of prayer.
Now, let me take you back to 2020, where people were losing loved ones and they weren't able to see them. They weren't able to talk to them because of this COVID. How difficult was that?
Well, it broke my heart. It caused me to weep because uh, you have to have the family connected with your loved ones, and doing it on a screen of an iPad isn't the same as touching a loved one, and it's a real. I think that we should have tried something better to enable the loved ones to be closer. And I because I think the for all those family members who lost loved ones, it's a great loss that they will forever uh, uh, remember. And as I mentioned to you, when my dad died suddenly, I wasn't able to be with him and tell him how much I loved him and to thank him for all the things he did for me and my brothers.
Amen. Now, you're a busy man, busy with work, but when did you have time to think about Jeremiah's hope to be able to travel to Cambodia, take teams with you, build a hospital? Tell us about Jeremiah's hope. How was that came about and all that?
Well, God has a plan, as you have heard me say. God has a plan for each of us. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. And I say that to my patients and my friends because many people are suffering, many people are lost, many people don't know what they're doing. They feel hopeless, Nazareth. And I
Mm.
give them the good news. Jesus has a plan for you. The Lord has a plan for you, and is the word for the Hebrew word for prosper you is actually the word shalom. I have
Mm.
shalom for you, and shalom is everything good, completion, well-being, not just the absence of conflict or agitation so another way of looking at a shalom is the whole enchilada. You're given he wants you to have everything good.
Mm.
And so in the mid 90s, I had heard a pastor named Satan Lee, who was a medical student in Cambodia during the beginning of the killing fields.
Mm.
And several of his family members were murdered. He ultimately escaped through the jungles of Cambodia, met a Christian evangelist in the jungle, and by the time he reached Thailand, he was a born again Christian. He immediately went into work as a pastor.
Mm.
He was a pastor in the Thailand refugee camp. They prayed they needed somebody to speak English, and they prayed for Satan. He learned to speak English overnight. He's pretty amazing man, and ultimately came to the United States and went to college, audited the Denver Seminary. He went to Colorado Christian University as a student, and then audited Denver Seminary, became ordained, and went back to Cambodia. But I heard his ordination sermon in 1990, I think it was 95, and the Lord took this doctor, me, and humbled me, because at
Mm.
that point, I was at the top of my game. I had beautiful wife, two great kids. I was in a very good medical practice, well known throughout the community. But he took me and he humbled me and he broke me and put me back together. He put me back together, and if someone says, "Why did I get broken?" Well, I was angry at myself because my son at that time was starting to show symptoms of bipolar illness, and it passes through the genetics. So my dad had it, which meant I at least carried the trait in me. And when my son was starting to struggle with this, I got very angry at myself. I took personal responsibility for that, and I got depressed. And
Mm.
I so I my Linda helped me, and I went on medicine for a while, got better, and then the Lord filled me up with Himself, and he had a plan, and Dr. Dan Smith, who is one of my colleagues where I worked, he was the top heart surgeon in the community, and he got depressed for no reason. So he got depressed, and then as I was getting better, I helped him get better, and that's when we started a Tuesday morning Bible study, which we're still meeting every Tuesday. And so Dr. Smith and I got better as the Lord, as He took us and broke us, and then He sent us to Cambodia. And I don't know why He wanted us to go to Cambodia, but that's why we went there in June of 2000, and the conditions in Cambodia in 2000 June were very, very, very bad. At the end of the killing fields, there were 32 physicians for the entire country. 18 of those physicians left the country, so they had less than 20 doctors for the entire country. And
Wow.
when we were there, Nazareth, we toured around the different hospitals. These these two tall American doctors wearing white coats. Our last day, Easter Sunday of 2000, we went to church and we're planning on flying out. We weren't sure why we were there, but this woman named Marie Enns, ENS, who was a Canadian missionary, came into the church where we were waiting to go in, and she says, Are you the two American doctors? I want you to come with me. You don't want to go to church because you're not going to understand it either. It's in Cambodian." So she grabbed us and she took us to another hospital that we had not visited, Nazareth. And
Mhm.
as Dan and I are walking around this community, suddenly we realize that there's 2 and 3 little children on each of our hands grabbing onto us. Now, these children are all about 5 years old. They
Mm.
all have brand new flip flops on, no pants. No, there's no pants. So they have flip flops, a shirt, and no pants. And these children have been loved by this missionary. She's
Mm.
the one who gave them the flip flops. And Dan and I both realized that this is whatever we did has to be under the banner of Jesus. Whatever we do, I mean, the humanitarian and medical, that's important, but it has to be under the banner of Jesus. So
Amen.
that's when we started Jeremiah's Hope. We've been taking teams over there. When I go over, I usually spend 2 weeks. I'll see usually 120 patients in a 2 week period. And of that group, probably 40 or 50 of them need open heart surgery. So we do the surgery in Cambodia because we built facilities and trained doctors, but we have to go back to America and raise the money. It cost us about uh, $5,000 to do an open heart operation in Cambodia. So a lot of our fundraising is raising money to pay for the surgeries.
Now, do you do surgeries yourself, doctor?
I at one time I was a interventional cardiologist. An interventional cardiologist is one who does the heart catheterizations. I did pacemakers and I did what we call stents, where if someone's having a heart attack, I would try to open up that vessel and do an angioplasty or a stent. So when I was over there early in my career in Cambodia, I would help teach the Cambodian doctors how to do these procedures. Yeah. And we would then bring equipment to help put
Uh,
in stents.
so, what's the biggest need financials right now for Jeremiah's Hope? Right, that always is the best.
Well, we have built a clinic with 2 state-of-the-art operating rooms, but the cost of operating that facility, it seems like every 5 years the rent is doubling. So we have bought land. We hope to build a $1.2 million hospital and then equip this to be able to do uh, heart caths and heart surgery. And our clinic director is a Dr. Sochin Sim, and he was Dr. Smith's medical student back in 2000. He's now Nazareth is the premier neurosurgeon in the country. So we do neurosurgery in our clinic, brain cancer surgery, brain tumors, neck and back surgeries. And because he's so good, uh, there are some patients who can pay for surgery. Well, they come and pay full price, and with that money, we help offset a lot of the cost of our clinic. So we still take care of the poor, but about 2/3 or 3/4 of our expenses of the nurses and doctors is now being met. But we need a new facility so
Right.
we can continue to care for the poor. The poor are still there, even though the economy of Cambodia is improving. The poor don't get any care.
Mm. That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, what do you call it? I want to encourage the listeners. If you just pray about it and see how you can be part of this. I mean, can you imagine being part of building a hospital that's a lighthouse? Because having physicians like Dr. Sheehan and Dr. Smith that able to pray with the patient or share Jesus with the patients. So this is would be a great like a double whammy for a lot of people. But I have a question here from Michael Ramirez says, what's your opinion regarding a DNR order? Isn't there always hope? I don't know what a DNR order is.
Yeah, DNR means do not resuscitate. That's what that means.
Oh,
Do not resuscitate. And that's a very good question. And the answer is there's always hope. There's always hope. And many times I'll see patients who I expect to die and they don't die and they get better. And Casey is a good example of that. So the answer is the doctors aren't in charge, but there on the other hand, there are diseases that run their course. There are diseases that run their course, and people are ready to go home to Jesus. They're ready to go home. And patients who've gone through down the road of cancer therapy, they've gone through chemo, they've gone through radiation, disease progresses. And in the dying process, there are 5 different stages of the dying process, which Dr. Kubler-Ross has published and is expressed very clearly. But the last phase of this is acceptance. Uh,
Mm.
Someone has their illness, they've come to the point where death is imminent, they've accepted death, they're ready to go, they're ready to go to the next chapter in their life. And in that setting, if they have a cardiac arrest, they don't want to be resuscitated. They want to go home. And that's that piece uh, of wanting to go into his presence. And when patients, Nazareth, have had a near death experience and I resuscitate them and they come back and talk to me, what do they tell me? Dr. Sheehan, not to worry. Dr. Sheehan, not to worry. It's okay. They, they,
Really?
they reassure me not to worry, not to worry.
Wow.
So I think in some settings, when one of my patients is dying and they're ready to go home, I let nature, I don't actively end anyone's life, but I also don't actively prolong it. I let nature take its own.
Now, is it true, doctor, that if someone had a heart, like giving CPR, like if you give someone CPR or you get him to the hospital and they use the defibrillator, I can't even say it,
Dipperlo.
the defibrillator, does damage to the heart or to the aorta, and it's bad?
No, no.
No.
So the sooner you can resuscitate, if someone has a cardiac arrest, well, let me explain it this way. When someone has a heart attack, one of the arteries going to the heart is blocked, and that area of the heart with no oxygen starts undergoing damage. There's no oxygen, and it starts undergoing damage, and that area of the heart becomes very irritable. And so what happens is that a fatal arrhythmia can develop. So the heart
Mm.
stops because of an arrhythmia. Now, if you can get that patient and resuscitate them with a defibrillator, you can restore their health, and they may still have a very good outcome. But the sooner you do that, the better. For example, if I'm doing
Mm.
a cardiac catheterization on somebody to find out what's wrong, and they have a cardiac arrest while I'm doing it, well, I just shock the heart, but keep going on with the test. See, because
Mm.
I can quickly turn that around and I continue with the test. But that patient, if you're going to have a cardiac arrest, have it in front of your cardiologist on the cath lab table, because then I can quickly resuscitate them, shock them once, and I keep going. They may not even lose consciousness.
Wow. Now your specialty was to save people's life when they're having a cardiac arrest. Now, what do you tell people who are not in the hospital that they don't even, how can someone tell they have a heart issue if, other than, I mean, what, like sometimes people say they just had a heart attack, we didn't expect anything. What would be science to know you might have a bad heart?
Sure. Um, Certainly, I think our audience needs to know you need to have a primary care doctor. You need to have a physician, and that physician should advise all of our patients how not to get heart disease. And so when I talk to a patient, the main risk factors for developing heart disease, coronary artery disease specifically, don't smoke, keep a normal blood pressure, normal cholesterol, low fat, low cholesterol diet, regular exercise, be in love, go to church. These are the key, these are the big risk factors that can make a difference. Now, I Also, of course, there is another disease called diabetes. You want to do everything you can to not have diabetes, and if you do have diabetes, to have that adequately treated. But there are so much data now that you can prevent heart disease by controlling cholesterol, not smoking, normal blood pressure, and it makes a huge difference. Now, in regard to symptoms, are you still there, Nazareth?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm changing cameras. I'm sorry. Go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah, keep
When
going.
someone has symptoms of chest pressure, chest discomfort, tightness in the chest that comes on with effort and goes away with rest, those symptoms are pretty classic for lack of blood flow to the heart, and that person should go see their doctor, get a treadmill test, or have an angiogram, find out what's wrong, and get those problems taken care of.
Now, what is considered a good cholesterol? What is it changes throughout history.
But it sure does. When I was a medical student in Houston back in the early 70s, a normal cholesterol was up to 300. Now we have, and Baylor was one of the institutions doing a lot of the primary research on cholesterol and heart disease. Today, we've made great strides, and we have medicines now that can lower the bad cholesterol, and that's called LDL. LDL is the bad cholesterol, and if someone has risk factors for heart disease or has heart disease, his LDL or bad cholesterol should be less than 70.
Mm.
Uh, and we have several drugs that can lower that. The statins can lower that, and by lowering these bad cholesterol, we've been able to show prevention of heart disease. People never develop heart disease, and people who do have heart disease do not progress in their disease. It used to be, Nazareth, when I first started practice, that someone would have a heart attack, and 5 years later they'd have another heart attack, and it would keep on and on until they died. Now I have many patients who've had a heart attack. We've taken care of their problems. They're on the right medicine, and they have a full life with no more problems. And that's very exciting. You
That
prevent
is amazing.
disease. So
That's
it's very exciting, and it's very hopeful to people that just because they have problems doesn't mean we can't prevent new problems. If you're, and I mentioned this to you, if you're, my dad died of heart disease, but he was a smoker. If your loved one who died prematurely smoked and you smoke, you have 100% of the same risk as your dad. If you don't smoke, only 1/3 of that risk passes down to you. So it gives me weapons to help change people's lifestyle. When I was practicing, very few of my patients stayed smoking. They just didn't continue smoking because I was always on them, telling them you can't do that. You can't do that if you want to do well. You want to do well, quit smoking, normalize your blood pressure. And so that's how you can take a person, you can rehabilitate them. The same way as you can take someone and say, I was lost once. I was lost, and the love of God came, and it changed my life. And that's where that relationship of the evangelist is such that when you have someone who's lost and they don't know what to do, they're hopeless. It's
mm.
found the hope is found in a person, and his name is Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Do you think, doctor, that stress, like people who have a stressful job, does that impact the heart?
Uh, yeah, there's it's controversial, Nazareth, because if you look at the type A stressful person and the type B relaxed person, it's not always so clear, and it's hard to distinguish. But I can say the stressful, angry person is at much higher risk. the
Wow.
stressful, angry person. So, the kind of person who hears you and gets upset at what I'm saying and then puts his hand through the wall, that that person needs some help in stress management and anger management. Because anger is a very dangerous thing.
Can people die of a broken heart? Well, let me rephrase this. Is people who are single, not in a love relationship, you think being in a relationship with it's better for their heart?
Absolutely. Love, I wish I could bottle love and sell it, because love uh, has a positive influence on all aspects of health.
Yeah, I have a friend who had several, like 5 or 6 stents put in his heart, but then in his arteries, but he's still getting clogged, or his arteries are getting clogged, even with stents. What is that? What can they do about that?
Well, stenting is a great procedure, but it doesn't take care of all problems. And there are people who have extensive diffuse disease where the whole artery is diseased, and that may be very difficult to treat short of medical treatment. And there is evidence that major dietary changes in medicines might be just as effective in some patients as stents or bypass surgery. So not everyone needs stents and bypass. Some patients, what they need is a major change in their diet, where they're on a vegetarian, low-fat, non-fat diet, and those people may do very well. In fact, the aggressive diet control of coronary disease is an accepted way of treating some people. So don't ever underestimate the value of good medical care, lowering cholesterol, lowering blood pressure, no smoking, exercise, low fat diet. This can make a big difference down the road in a lot of patients and give them hope also.
Okay, let's say Dr. Sheehan goes to a buffet and there is pork, there is beef, there is chicken, there's fish. What would you choose to to keep your heart healthy? Which one's the best one?
Well, the first thing is Dr. Sheehan knows his LDL is 50. Okay. I know,
Oh, that's perfect.
I know my LDL is normal, and I know my blood pressure is normal because I check it, and I try to exercise, and I'm losing weight. I've already lost 10 pounds from my COVID 20, so I'm trying to drop some more weight. But to answer your question, uh, and to be honest with my patients, I tell them 90% of the time I'm on a low fat, low cholesterol diet. 90% of the time, which means 10% of the time I can cheat. And if I cheat,
Mm.
I'm going to have an ice cream bar or something like that. And I'm cheating, and I'll say, okay, I'm cheating, but I don't keep the stuff in the house. Let me put it that way.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Keep the stuff in the house.
Yeah, I have a
90,
question. Oh,
we don't. For example, when we first got married, Lynn and I used to love to eat cheese. We love cheese. Well, we don't keep the stuff in the house. We don't keep hard cheese in the house. So if I don't go to a cocktail party and someone's ordering cheese on crackers, yeah, I'll have a couple of cheese on crackers, but I'm cheating.
really? Cheese is bad for you?
Oh, yeah, cheese is a saturated fat. So you should have very little fat. It's the fat in your diet that you want to reduce, the fat in your diet.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know because I eat a lot of cheese, but I should cut that down.
Yeah, you
Now,
don't want to eat hard cheeses. You do much better having a few pistachio nuts or a few almonds and not the hard cheeses. You do much better off. Or
what do you
having,
mean hard cheese? What's the difference between regular cheese and hard cheese?
well, it's the fat content. So low fat. There are some cheeses that are made with skim milk, and those are fine. If you have
Mhm.
cheeses that are made from skim milk, those are fine. But some of your string, your Parmesan cheeses, those are low in fat. The hard cheeses are the ones that we all love to eat. As a regular part of my diet, that's not on my diet. I don't eat that. I used to do that, but we don't eat hard cheeses. Uh, we'll have Parmesan cheese on a piece of on some spaghetti or something like that. But coming home and having a pound of cheese on crackers, we don't do that anymore.
Now, being having this show sponsored by Professional Botanical Vitamins, this question, trust me, have nothing to do with that. You think vitamins are helpful for the heart?
Uh, yes. For example, vitamins for our audience are there are essential vitamins you have to get. So I think a man my age should take a multivitamin. I take a multivitamin without iron. A woman who's postmenopausal should take a multivitamin without iron. And a woman who's still having her menstrual cycle should take iron in her diet. Men don't need iron because men should not be losing blood. Women who are menstruating lose blood, so they should take iron. But men should never take iron. And the reason is if a man became anemic due to blood loss from a colon polyp or something worse, you want that to you want to know that, and so you don't take iron unless you're menstruating. Is that so? That's an example of a vitamin. I don't want men ever to take iron. Okay,
That's interesting. I didn't know
so
that. That's wonderful.
so there are some vitamin deficiencies. One common one is you can have a low thyroid, and so you need to take thyroid medication. I'm a fly fisherman. I'm out in the sun all day long, but I always cover my face and my body with clothes or sunscreen. So my vitamin D level is low. So I take vitamin D as a supplement. So,
Mm,
but I don't. I'm not a big fan of taking all sorts of unnecessary vitamins. To answer your question,
right. Okay.
okay.
How come some people they run and it doesn't bother them? Other people, like for myself, when I start running the first 5 minutes, I'm like, I can't even breathe, and then it gets normal, but I can't talk. Like when I start talking, I'm like, I'm like,
Well, that's because you haven't trained. And so when you take somebody and start them exercising, you have to train them.
mm,
You train them at a pace where they can do that comfortably. And then after you go through a training program, you can gradually increase the intensity and duration of the work, and that's training. So if I told you I want you to go out and run a 7 minute mile around a track, you would get 100 yards in and you'd stop and you'd vomit and you'd say this stinks, I'm not doing that. And the reason being is that when a person runs, you have to use oxygen to burn sugar to make the energy to run. And if you run above a certain level so that you're not using oxygen, you're just burning fuel without oxygen, you make an acid called lactic acid. And
I
if you
see.
make lactic acid, your body is going to stop because of the acid and you're going to stop. It'll stop you. So if you look at a sprinter, someone who's running a 100-yard dash, that is a race that is 100% anaerobic. When that runner is running, he's burning all that fuel without oxygen. So after 10 seconds, he stops because he's built up lactic acid. Whereas if you take another runner and he's running a 10,000-meter race, he's running at a pace where he's burning fuel with oxygen. And that's called aerobic metabolism. And he can do that for long periods of time without making any lactic acid. So, to answer your question, the reason you train somebody, put them through a cardiac rehab program or a training program, is that you can exercise aerobically using oxygen to burn their fuels without making any lactic acid. And then you can do that for long, long periods. Does that
That's
explain your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Now, I have two last questions. I know I appreciate your time, Doctor. How can people get a hold of this book, The Healing Prayer on Holy Ground?
Well, it's available on Amazon. It's available on some of the bookstores here in Denver, or people can write me a letter to my email, and I can send them a copy and tell them how much the book is $12.99 for a soft copy,
Yes,
$16.99 for a hard copy, plus tax and shipping.
Jim.
So we can do that. We can do that. If they email me personally, I can send them a copy. And you have my personal email, right?
Yes, if you need to the book, let me know and I'll connect you with Dr. Sheehan. The second question, how can people support Jeremiah's Hope?
Well, our website is www.cmmcjh.org, and that stands for Christian Medical Ministry Cambodia Jeremiah's Hope. And our address is right in there where they can mail a check and help us in the fundraising. Again, that email address is www.cmmcjh.org.
Perfect. I will have that. It is www.cmmcgjah.org.
Right.
Right. All right. Dr. Sheehan, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. You helped so many people spiritually and physically tonight. So I thank you for your time and look forward to see you again in person.
Yes, indeed. And I certainly want to encourage all of your listeners. Heart disease can be prevented. You have to be proactive, get on the right course of treatment, get a good primary doctor to help you with this so you don't have to see a cardiologist.
Amen. Love you, doctor. Thank you so much
God
for your
bless you
time.
all.
God bless you. All right.